Don't be one of those test takers who make the same mistakes over and over again on their IELTS exam. In today's video, I'm going to cover the most common mistakes students make on their exam so you can avoid them when you are taking your IELTS exam. Let's get right into this video. There are many things that could go wrong on test day, so I'm going to provide you with mistakes you can avoid on your exam day. So the first tip that most students make in the IELTS listening section is that they don't read the questions before the audio is played. It's so important that before the audio is played in the IELTS listening section, even if it's 10 seconds before the examiner plays the audio, you quickly get an idea of the questions you should be listening for. Because in the IELTS listening section, you will only hear the audio recording being played once. So if you are able to quickly get an idea of what answers you should look for based on the questions asked on the question bank, then you get an idea of what exactly you should listen for before that audio recording is being played. So make sure you read the questions carefully before the audio is played so you get an idea or an understanding of what you are listening for. And the second most common mistake students often make is they don't familiarize themselves with the different English accents they may hear on exam day. So when you are listening to the audio recordings in the IELTS listening section, you may hear different English accents such as UK, Canadian, US, Australian, or New Zealand. And all these English accents could vary and they're so different. So you need to make sure you are familiar with the different English accents so you are not surprised or overwhelmed on exam day not understanding what a certain word means or what exactly this person is saying in the audio recording. And guys, the third common mistake students make is in the IELTS reading section. It's so important that you read the instructions carefully, guys. So in the IELTS reading section, when you are given a question to answer, usually the question says that the answer should be no more than 3 words or no more than 2 words. And some students often make this mistake of writing 3 words when the instructions clearly say your answer should be no more than 2 words. And that way they get the answer wrong because they just wrote a word like the or with the answer, but it's 3 words and not 2 words. So guys, make sure you carefully read instructions for the IELTS reading section so you don't make this common mistake and you can avoid it and get a high band. And another tip on the IELTS reading section is that you need to be able to manage your time correctly. Before you start your passages in the IELTS reading section, I highly recommend that you write on your paper how long you are planning to spend on this passage. So because you are only given 1 hour to answer all your questions, 40 questions in the IELTS reading section, I would literally write the time you start and the time you plan to finish that particular passage. And even if you are not done answering the questions for that passage, you have to move along to the next passage because the difficulty of the passages increase between each one. So you need to make sure you have enough time to spend on each particular passage. And my recommendation is that maybe you spend 15 minutes on the first one, 20 minutes on the second one, and then 25 minutes on the third passage. So that way you have the most time on the difficult passage, which is usually passage 3. And guys, the fourth common mistake students often make on the IELTS writing section is that they do not follow the requirements for the question. So for example, if the instructions for IELTS writing task 1 or that your answer needs to be a minimum of 150 words. Do not write 130 words. Do not write 135 words. Write a minimum of 150 words. Make sure you follow instructions, guys. This is a big part of getting a high band. And on top of that, in IELTS Writing Task 2, you need to make sure you also follow the requirements. If the instructions say something, make sure you clearly follow it to the T. And in the IELTS Writing Task 2 section, you need to make sure that you have an introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, a conclusion, because this is what an essay is comprised of. You need to make sure you follow these instructions because this is what a proper essay should have, and you need to make sure you clearly state all the information and it's written in a cohesive and clear manner throughout your essay. Make sure you have a clear structure throughout your writing and you include an introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, a conclusion, so that way you are able to write in the most clearest and cohesive manner and the examiner does not have a hard time following along your summary. And guys, the fifth most common mistake students make that you need to avoid is in the IELTS speaking section, you need to make sure that you speak for a full 2 minutes. So in the IELTS speaking section, do not speak for a minute and a half or 1 minute and 45 seconds. If you stop at 1 minute and 45 seconds, you will not get the desired band you want. Instead, if you stop at 1 minute and 45 seconds, just try to speak for another sentence or two so that way you are able to cover that certain timing to speak for a full 2 minutes. Do not make this mistake and try to remember to speak for a full 2 minutes. And another mistake students often make is not answering the question directly. If the examiner asks you what your favorite sport is, do not tell him that you went to a sports game, for example. Yes, you could mention you went to a sports game, but make sure you answer the question directly. Like, for example, if you say basketball is my favorite sport, you can relate it to basketball. Do not say basketball is my favorite sport, but I went to a soccer game, for example. So you need to make sure you answer the question directly and don't try to sway along to a different topic because this will get you a low band. And guys, if you want to know how exactly you can speak for a full 2 minutes in the IELTS Speaking Part 2 section, make sure you check out this video up above so you get tips and strategies on how to speak for a full 2 minutes in the IELTS Speaking Part 2 section. And guys, if you like this video so far, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you are notified when I put out videos on this channel.